The ultimate goal of every professional athlete is obviously to help their teams win a championship, but individually you'd be lying to yourself if you didn't think everybody that makes it to the league is looking to make as much money as possible throughout their careers, because being a professional athlete doesn't last forever. As a result of this, every season we see players have career years the season before they hit free agency, and oftentimes people chalk it up to them being on a mission to prove their worth in order to earn a big payday in that offseason. But for the topic of today's video, we'll actually be looking at the opposite end of the spectrum. Today, we'll be discussing 5 players that are going to be free agents in 2021, and coming into this season, they were seen as players that could have potentially been in for solid paydays, but because of their play on the court this year, they might actually be hurting their chances at getting the money that they want. Before we start though, it turns out about 67% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first player currently costing himself a lot of money in this upcoming free agency this year is Josh Richardson of the Dallas Mavericks. Josh's time spent on the Miami Heat early in his career saw him go from an unheralded second-round pick to a highly valuable perimeter defender that seemed to be progressing nicely as an offensive contributor. It seemed like he could become a lockdown defender, his shooting was improving steadily, and because of this, he got a contract extension worth about $11 million per year at the time, and based on his trajectory, many believed by the time his next contract would come around, he'd be seeing a big-time raise. However, since then, his growth has been somewhat halted, and some of his bigger flaws have been getting exposed. Last season in Philadelphia, he flashed issues with his decision-making, his subpar perimeter shooting, he's really not that much of a creator, and his perimeter defense was still pretty good, but it wasn't great like many hyped it up to be. Now this year, he got traded to Dallas, where once again, he was brought in because of his perimeter defense and secondary playmaking, and his production in both of those categories have been pretty frustrating. He's shooting a miserable 29% from 3, he still isn't much of a shot creator, and his defense doesn't make up for it. He'll still be someone teams want to sign for sure, but the contract offers he'll receive very well may be in the same ballpark of the one that he's currently on, instead of the pay raise that he was probably hoping for. The next player we'll be discussing that has been losing himself a good amount of money because of his play this season is Devonte Graham of the Charlotte Hornets. Graham was another second-round pick who really didn't come into the NBA with any real expectations, but in his second season last year, he emerged and had a huge breakout season where he scored over 18 points per game and dished out about 8 assists per game as well. His ability to create his own shot off the dribble and knock down threes was reliably impressive, and he seemed to be on his way to earning a nice pay raise in free agency as long as he continued at that level of play. However, this season, he's taken a huge step back across the board, and now his value needs to be re-evaluated. He's struggled shooting the ball, converting his threes at a below average rate, his overall efficiency is poor, making just 35% of his shots, he's not exactly the best defender due to him being a bit undersized, and all of this will be brought up in contract negotiations. He'll still receive a comfortable amount of money and probably end up as a valuable backup point guard for whatever team he goes to, but he was seemingly a potential starting caliber player last year, which does not seem to be the case anymore. The next player we'll be discussing that falls into this category is Kelly Oubre of the Golden State Warriors. Oubre is different from the previous two in that he came into the league as a mid-first round pick in the draft, and early on he was a decent wing player that contributed well on both ends of the floor. Starting in Washington, he served as a solid bench piece for them on some good playoff teams. And then when he was traded to Phoenix, he took his game up a notch. He signed a 2-year contract back in 2019 worth $15 million per year, and it was a bit of a bet on yourself kind of deal, being short term, where he wanted to prove he could continue to improve and potentially earn even more money in the next go-around. Last year in Phoenix, he took that leap that he was banking on, averaging nearly 19 points per game, showing off much improved shot creation, still playing good defense, and looking like the kind of player worth potentially around $20 million per year. Then this year, he came to the Warriors, and in the most important season of all, he's taken a few steps back. His start to the season shooting the ball was historically bad, and he's only making 29% of his threes so far overall on the season, and the combination of his shots just not falling, combined with his questionable decision making when it comes to the kind of shots he would be taking, infuriated Warriors fans. He has admittedly been playing a bit better in recent games, but in general, his season has been a somewhat negative one, and he has a ways to go by the end of the year if he wants to regain the value that he once had. The next player up for discussion in this topic is, again, an unfortunate selection, but it's one that I had no choice but to make, with it being Lonzo Ball of the New Orleans Pelicans. So many players from that draft class of 2017 have already received their big contract extensions, with players like Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, and Bam Adebayo getting paid big recently, and even Markelle Fultz has gotten a $50 million extension with the Magic despite everything he went through. So Lonzo not getting an extension signed, while also only showing minimal improvement in terms of his production, is not that good of a look for him. He still brings good value in terms of passing, playmaking, and defense, but his scoring is still inconsistent, and his impact on games just isn't as high as most expected it to be at this point in his career. I do want to say that he has been playing much better in recent weeks, and he is trending in the right direction, but with that being said, his value on the open market seems a bit weird right now, and I'm not certain he would even garner the same kind of money that Fultz got. I'm hoping he continues to trend upward as he has recently, which would salvage more value by the end of the year, but right now he unfortunately lands on this list. And finally, the last player we'll be discussing today is Danny Green of the Philadelphia 76ers. Green has been a valuable role player for many years now, transitioning lately to a wise veteran bringing championship pedigree to a lineup. He's a three-time champion, he used to be one of the best shooters in the NBA for many years, and his defense used to be top tier. But with that being said, I did say used to be for a reason. Green is only 33 years old, which is an age where you could reasonably expect to get one more solid contract from with a team if you showed you still had enough in the tank to contribute well for a few more seasons. But last year, Lakers fans grew incredibly frustrated with his play, and this year, Sixers fans are experiencing a lot of the same. His speed and lateral quickness has deteriorated, so his effectiveness as an on-ball defender has suffered as he gets blown by very often now. His shooting touch is incredibly hit or miss, which does not bode well for the kind of shot selection that he has, and while he is still a great player to have in the locker room, it seems like his next contract extension will likely be closer to the veteran's minimum than a hefty role player contract. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the players that we discussed in this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.